Very excited to talk to everyone here today because this show has so many people who are already fans of it because of the written word, because of Terry and everything he's created, Discworld, and the watch coming from that world is just amazing. So first and foremost, if everyone could just give me a little wave that you're okay, you're healthy, everything's all right. I want to make sure. Beyond that, I want to thank you all for coming, and I guess let's begin with the producers and let's talk about this show too. So first and foremost, how did this come about? How did this idea that we can expand into this world first? I guess the kernel that became something that grew. Simon, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was firstly these books are extraordinary. Terry Prachett is a titan, and we are so grateful to be working with these characters and with these stories and in this world. It's such a gift and such a privilege. How it started was that BBC Studios and Narrativia, the guys that look after the books, have been working on various iterations of a show called The Watch that drew on different elements of the books for quite some time. It had been that usual thing with development in TV and film, and I came in quite late. I came in after there'd been multiple attempts, and was sort of encouraged to think about it differently, encouraged to come at it from a different angle. And I've come at it from quite a left field angle. But what I've done is, and this attracted the interest of BBC America, who have a similar kind of sensibility, is to kind of look at what I love about these books, which is that, Terry Pratchett is present as a commentator and a narrator in his own stories. They're very self-aware. He's doing things with the medium of literature that I don't think anyone else does. He manipulates it and subverts it brilliantly. And it felt like, okay, we don't have him, he's no longer with us, sadly. And we're in a different medium, we're in television. And so it was about trying to find televisual equivalents of those literary conceits, different rhythms and patterns and tropes, because television and literature are very, very different. And then it was one of the things is he wrote in a multiverse. He had this sort of different. He says at one point in one of the books, so that gave us a license to kind of think, okay, well, our show isn't going to be canon, but it's going to be in one of the kind of backwaters of Discworld, and so it can be its own thing and work for people who don't know these books. And I think that was the starting point. And then from that was the fact that, if I looked at the watch books, which are the crown jewels of Discworld, they're utterly extraordinary. The first book, Guards, is just one of the best comedies anybody's ever written. And one of the later books, Night Watch, is just this incredible psychological thriller with amazing characterizations. So it felt like we'd borrow and sample from those different books to try and give you a singular experience that, if you know nothing about these extraordinary works of art, then you'll be entertained by it, you'll be engaged by it. And if you do know these books, you might be upset that it's not the faithful adaptation that you feel they deserve, but it's something that is absolutely a loving tribute to them, that is utterly respectful to their brilliance and tries to do something on its own terms for the broadest audience possible.
And it very much comes through not only the creation for the audience, expanding characters and giving them their own little foibles as well as their strengths, but also I can tell the fun and the painstaking that goes into creating this world as well, because I love these sets. I love every character, the way they look. So I guess let's go to Richard and ask, what was the idea about creating the looks of each of these characters, and also some of the monsters and the trolls and all the other things that are a part of this world, those ideas kind of come together?
Well, we wanted to make a show that felt very contemporary, that felt that it could be enjoyed by an audience who both know the books, but also a wider audience who don't necessarily know Pratchett's works yet. And so once we had decided that we were going to shoot in Cape Town, and we'd spoken to our amazing production designer, Simon Rogers, and he had done some sort of initial ideas based on the locations that we could use, we started to form a coherent city, a sort of coherent world that we could sort of populate. And like any big city, Ankh-Morpork sort of existed a long time ago, and then new bits have been built on top of that, and new bits have been built on top of that. And styles have changed, designs have changed. There are different sort of groups of people who might live in the city. And the idea basically was to get what felt like a coherent sort of mishmash, if you like any big metropolitan city, that once you stepped into it as an audience, you felt that you could actually genuinely walk down these streets and sort of pick up the props and talk to the actors and interact in that world. We wanted to sort of not rely too much on CG. There is some CG in there, of course, but we wanted to sort of feel like it was a real city that you could walk down and sort of, kick the dirt and feel things with your fantasy with fingerprints is a phrase that Simon actually used a lot on the show that we loved. And Simon sort of ran with that. Simon Rogers, our production designer, ran with that. And we got our costume designer, our lead director, Craig Viveros, and they all worked together to bring this sort of coherent sense of a world together. In that, there is this impotent police force, so we felt we needed to give them a sort of uniform, even though actually they've been marginalized and the uniform hasn't been updated for years, and it's all a bit sort of unkempt and a bit pulled apart. And Sam Vimes, the lead character, probably represents that in the best way. And we're also very keen not to have CG creatures. We've seen a few shows where there have been CG creatures, some very successfully done, but with a lot more money than we had. And actually, we felt that with characters like Sergeant Detritus, the sort of big stone troll, we actually wanted somebody in a suit. And we had a fantastic prosthetics and makeup team who built this 8-9 foot troll, which is a brilliant stuntman, Craig McRae, sort of is inside moving around on these sort of short stilts. And it just felt like there was a presence in the room that people could react to. And overall, hopefully it feels like once you start to watch it, that it's a city that feels real, even though it's in a fantasy world.
And I think so as well. And there was a lot of realism, and you were talking about, of course, Richard playing Sam, and he is the most real part of the scenery, I guess, too, because you can almost smell him from the way he looks and how everyone. I mean, I guess I have to go to the actors now and ask: did they try to make sure you had a sheen of dirt and grime upon you on a regular basis? Outside of Care, I think. So, Adam, what was your character of Carrot? He comes in and he is literally the fresh-faced boy who comes in. So, talk to us a little bit about Carrot and tell us what can we expect from him and his little adventures.
Well, yeah, you're literally introduced to Carrot for the first time right at the beginning of the episode. And he sort of draws the audience in, and the audience see the world of Ankh-Morpork through his eyes. And basically, he finds this city that he thought was going to be a place full of justice and a law-abiding city where he could really fight crime and do what he thought was the right thing. But it turns out it's the complete opposite of that, and nothing is working in the city. It's full of guilds, which have all been sort of legalized crime, basically, with the Thieves Guild, the Assassins Guild, the Alchemist Guild. They can all commit their crimes and do their things within an agreed quota with the patrician, which leaves the watch pretty powerless, because what's the point in committing a crime when you can technically commit the crime for legally? So yeah, he comes in from the mountains, fresh-faced and very naive, and yeah, the audience witnesses what he sees as he enters the city.
And his background as well. He is human, but he's had many interact with other species as well. Can you talk about his background a little bit? Are you allowed to talk about his background? I don't know.
I believe I am. Yes. So he's a human, but he was raised by dwarves in the Copperhead Mountains, and he doesn't realize throughout his life that he isn't a dwarf. He believes he's a dwarf like everyone else in the mines, and I remember researching him and finding out that his nickname, I think it's Khazad Bur, and that translates to headbanger, which is pretty obvious when he's over 6 feet tall and banging his head all the time when no one else is. And he eventually finds out from his parents that he isn't their child after all, and is an adoptive son to them after he was abandoned at birth in the mine, for reasons we don't know yet, like in the inception of the series, but may find out later on. So, but yeah, so that's where it all begins with him. So yeah.
Well, on from him to someone who is is someone who is, I guess, her personality, as well as the fact that they seem to always put some grime on her one way or the other. Mara, can you talk us a little about Angua? Angua. Can you talk to us a little bit about her and I guess maybe her background as well? I don't know how much you can give away on that as well, which is weird. I'm going to say that pretty much about everything now. So let's just, what you can tell us. Let's go with that.
Also, apologies, there's an ice cream van outside and it might just go off in a couple of seconds. So I was trying
if you come back with an ice cream cone and start eating it, you're gold. That's it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, when we first meet, you know, Angua, it's Angua van Ugerwald, so she's a member of the Moorport City Watch. And when we first meet her, you know, she's this sort of feral and very much guarded character, I guess. And then as the story unfolds, if I'm okay to say, you know, I think she's very much of a refugee who's had to leave her pack, her family or whatever, and go on this journey and sort of escape because of her fears of who she is, of what she can become, and also what she can do to others without necessarily wanting to. But then she finds her place within the watch, you know, a bunch of misfits and who come together. Yeah, although there's a lot of fear, I guess, and sorry about this. I'm just literally waiting for this damn thing to move. No, sorry, I was like, I'm gonna have to mute myself there.
No problem. If the ice cream comes, it comes. That's a saying I'm going to start to say on a regular basis now. So I don't know what it means, but I hope it makes me sound more intelligent and like, yeah. If the ice cream comes, it comes. Put that quote next to my grave. Well, and you know the fun thing about her, I think, is she is fierce too. So, you know, you get a chance to kind of show a lot of emotion. Most of it ends up being anger and angst and just this kind of look too. So, you know, was it fun to kind of have that powerful and I guess angry at times character?
It was very it was great to have that, you know, to work with, you know, in the very beginning. I talked a lot with Craig Veras, our first director, and also of course with Simon, to figure out, you know, where does this all start? Where does she sort of place that fear or that anger, and how to make it come across with the way she walks or fights. We had a great stunt team, stunt coordinator, Daryl, who really helped me with that, to find a way of fighting very effortlessly, let's say, like she does that all the time, and it's her sort of her thing. So it was really exciting to have that to work with, but also just have that sort of fear within of what she could do at any moment if it came to it. And yeah, that was very exciting. And also, you know, to change the hair and like be very grimy and dirty. A lot of us were very dirty all the time, like not, I mean, not literally, but you know. And I think it gives it a fact of us just kind of like constantly wearing the same outfits all the time, and just I don't know, just growing old, and nothing's really happening until you know, Carrot comes around, really, that he really pushes us to wake up and to do something with ourselves,
right,
and move forward as a team. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about grime, and of course, as I said before, Sam is the definition of grime in this too. So when you see Sam walk out in this garb and everything too, what do you think he would smell like? What in your mind, you're like, he should smell like this. What's the idea in your mind?
Well, I think I do know what he smells like, actually.
Tell us what do you believe he smells like? What's the perfect analogy to what he is?
Well, he has a good friend who is a dog that he keeps chasing around the city. So probably a lot of dog and a lot of urine of dog mixed together. Yeah, that's probably the general odor he gives off, I'd say.
Richard
Not
Dormer,
Richard, though, of course, not Richard.
Not Richard.
Richard Dormer was very, very keen for him to have kind of soot all over his skin. So when you see the show, you see that because it's the city, right, kind of the dirt and the grime of the city coming out of his pores. So I definitely think he does smell of a dog. If you've seen the trailer, you've seen the episode, you know that that's quite likely. But he also smells of the city and the streets, right? He's got, I think Richard Dormer, the things he's done with this part are absolutely amazing. I mean, these two guys, everybody's amazing. But Richard really inhabited this role and really took it very, very seriously. And there's a very famous speech, a section of one of the books, the Sam Vimes Socioeconomic Theory of Boots. And Richard Dormer was absolutely insistent that that was in the show because it was all about, he will tell you that the character for him was all about the boots, the selection of the boots, being able to feel the cobbles of the city between his toes. So we make sure that that's in there because it's a sacred thing. And he was so kind of proud to do that. And he really, really loves this character and really, really wants to, own this character.
Right.
And I think he does that. I think when you see his performance, you'll see that.
Well, I should.
City cigars and booze is basically
cigars are a big, and he would smoke them. They weren't fake, those cigars. I think they were licorice cigars, and Richard would that was his little reward at the end of every day. He would go and actually smoke the cigar that's a prop. He smoked a prop. I mean, yeah.
Well, if I can say, there are many different aspects of this world which I really love, but I also love how open it is to all of the monsters and things out there as well. So we have magic, we have monsters, we have, I believe, oops, sorry, that's the wrong one there. That's not the right. That wasn't supposed to be there. We were supposed to have this one. We have dragons as well, correct?
Oh.
So we have many different things in here, as well as trolls, dwarves. So expanding the world as it is, was it fun kind of creating all of these aspects and involving them in this world, to kind of expand not only humans and the watch, but everyone who's involved with it as well.
I mean, Terry Prachett it's an idea a second in his books, right? I mean, it's just they are so packed with the atoms of ideas everywhere, and his imagination was just extraordinary. And we tried to sort of do versions of some of those things in this version of the watch. And you're absolutely right. I think that this world has a kind of contrariness to it, so that it appears to have glimpses of modernity in amongst the antiquity that's also part of the city. But that modernity is always powered by magic, and usually malfunctioning magic, because all of the technology that you see in the city comes from Unseen University, which is kind of like the magical STEM center. And one of my favorite innovations that they've created, and that is one of Pratchett's, I mean, it's one of his billions of incredible ideas, is this thing called the iconograph, which is the equivalent of like a camera, a surveillance camera. But instead of tape and hard drives inside there's a little imp who paints at 24 frames a second. And you see him in the trailer, I think, and you see him in episode 1. And that creature is just one thing of a thousand things that you'll find in this series. And around every corner, you'll have an encounter with a creature that's as weird and surprising and unusual as that. And it's that imagination and invention that he had, that's so remarkable. And so, yeah, we've just drawn on as much of that as we possibly could. It's a world of talking swords. It's a world of eagles. It's a world of dwarves. It's a world of trolls. And we've also tried to make as many of those things as physical as possible. Like Richard talked about fantasy with fingerprints. We really wanted it to feel kind of like, we wanted to, another phrase we used a lot was old school the shit out of it. And we wanted to old school it, so we wanted people in suits and on stilts rather than CG and so on. So it's a much more physical fantasy world, I think, than you're used to seeing on screen these days.
Very cool. Well, I know we have to let you go in like 1 minute, but really quickly, I would be remiss if I didn't ask if you could introduce us to some of the people who haven't got a chance to talk about. So, Cherry, Lady Sybil, the sergeant as well. So, if you could just give us a little information on them really quickly before we let you go.
Information man, Richard.
where you're pointing wasn't it me. So Sergeant Detritus is our sort of our lovely large troll who has a heart of gold, and is Sam Vimes' best friend. He has a terrific little story, and hopefully we'll get under your skin and be a big favorite. We love that character. And who else do we not have? Sybil Ramkin. Simon, do you want to talk about Sybil?
Yeah, I mean, Sybil is a character brought to life by Lara Rossi, and Lara Rossi is there. She just walked in one day and just took this role and went places with it that were just extraordinary. We couldn't not have her in this show. And she is a woman. She is posh. She is wealthy. She is privileged. She is compassionate. She wants to change the world. And she's a woman that is taking up space. She's a big woman in the sense that she takes up a lot of sociocultural space, but she also takes down space, often with a broadsword and other tools and devices that are available to her. But she is just such a presence in this show. She's right at the heart of it. Her relationship with Sam is amazing. Her relationship with these guys is absolutely amazing. And then we should talk also about Joey and Kent, who plays Cheery. And again, I think it's such an exciting queer story, Cheery's story. It was very much a kind of a queer allegory in the books in the 90s. And Joe and our writers and our team, I think we've done something really progressive and really hopeful with that character, who is just an essential part of the team that has their own story, their own arc. And it's really something we're all very, very excited about. And Joe is funny, emotional, warm, incredible. It's such a great performance.
I think so too, and I want to hear more about her. I think there's a lot of stuff. I mean, even in season 2, we learned a little bit more, but there's so much more I know that's going to be coming about from that character too, but all the characters as well. Like I want to expand into this world and find out more. But I have to let you go. I would have to say though, right now, for everyone who got a chance to watch this, let's make sure you all put on your schedule. New York Comic-Con panel is happening this Friday, 10:15 a.m. Pacific, 1:15 a.m. Eastern, which makes, what is it in the UK then?
6:15 in the UK.
6:15 in the UK then. So you've got 3 different times to make sure you catch it wherever you are. And I'm sure you all give us a little bit more information, hopefully, and get to expand with a full cast and talk about the fun of making this show. So I want to thank you so much. Everyone, of course, one more time, New York Comic-Con panel. Make sure to check it out. And then hopefully we'll talk to you more once we release and we can talk about things, because I have things that I want to talk about, but I'm trying to be mum about as much as possible so I can let all the fans enjoy it with the full cast. So thank you all again for joining me, and I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you're safe and you're entertained wherever you are.
Thanks,
Thank you, Derek. Cheers.